you can't just talk about it in terms of every site together. They're going to be very different.
Yeah, feel free to make those comparisons.
I'm still trying to get a feel for it. It's pretty crazy. What did you think, Eric? Did you see any others?
Yeah, it's pretty soft.
Yep. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NFL Strategy Show, Ownership Edition, presented by PrizePicks. I'm Dave Loughran at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. For those of you podcast listeners, joined as always by Eric Lindquist at Eric Lindquist and Matt Gajeski at Matt_Gajeski. I'll give him the same honors, GAJEWSKI. Matt, we were talking about it right before the show started. Usually we can kind of have like blanket discussions about players so we don't go for 4 hours on a single show. But this slate, 14 games, week 17, looks a whole lot different from site to site as a lot of other ones have this season.
Yeah, and last week was kind of similar. There was a little pricing discrepancy with Alexander Madison where he was just a stone lock on FanDuel. And then DraftKings, he was still a really good play, but you had to make some decisions. But I was just running through some salaries, and like Antonio Brown, wide receiver 3 on FanDuel. He's at like wide receiver 18 on DraftKings. The same can be said with Sony Michel, who's running back 10 on FanDuel, running back 24 on DraftKings. If you're playing multiple sites, it actually creates an interesting dilemma, I think, and an interesting puzzle. And you're probably going to end up with a lot of diversification just naturally.
Yeah, no question. And look, Eric, I've said this yesterday on the First Look show. I'm kind of excited about this because now I can come in and I can play a 9-game slate, and then I can play a 5-game 4 p.m. slate. So you actually have 2 pretty good sized slates if you're not trying to go heavy into a 14-gamer.
Yeah, that's the Awesemo way. Play multiple slates, give yourself exposure to multiple spots, have your analysis matter more than just playing one main slate. I love these like 5-game afternoons too. Obviously I'm doing live before lock, and there are times when you want to be a little bit more hands-on with your lineups. And so I'll end up firing a little bit more on some of the late slate stuff. And it's nice to get anything that's more than like a 3-gamer.
Yeah, for sure. And you got some huge contests for both of these. So it's not like we're going to be starved for a big contest with big payouts. Anyway, we'll break it all down. We're happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. You know how it goes. Help us combat that YouTube overlords around here. Nameless, faceless beast. But we feed the algorithm. We move on. We're close to 70,000 subs, 69,600. We're almost there. And if you want to join, hit that join button down below. Get the custom emojis, the free super chats each month, the badges that improve over time, as you can see in our chat this morning. And we'll always shout you out and prioritize your questions along with our premium Discord members. But yeah, hammer that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you stick around for a little while. All right, let's do this, Eric. As we do always with this show, we do quarterbacks last because we'll talk about top stacks, and generally it just mixes in anyway, so we don't really have to worry about that. At running back though, and like Matt said, feel free to skip around with crazy ownership on one site compared to another just based on pricing. But if we're looking at DraftKings out of the gate, David Montgomery is pulling the most by a pretty wide margin, followed by Jonathan Taylor, Antonio Gibson, and guys like Sony Michel.
Yeah, coming off a week where, we just had so much value. I will say this is just a little bit different than that at the running back position. And, David Montgomery, I don't even know. I think it was a mistake by me last week not to be there. Obviously the volume is
me too, by the way. I actively spoke against not getting to him, but getting to a ton of them because there were so many other good players in that same price range.
Yeah, but 78% of the snaps, the big thing, obviously, for DraftKings purposes, the reason he's going to pop so much is this receiving volume is starting to come out of nowhere. 976 and 9 targets now through 4 games here. Definitely doesn't have to combat Damian Williams, Khalil Herbert for touches here. Again, 78% of the snaps there against Seattle. Now you're looking at a spot here, 6,500 going up against the New York Giants. This is definitely not an imposing spot by any means. He's definitely going to be one of the highest owned, if not the highest owned running back barring a lot of news. So I think it makes sense. 25% even feels low just because there is less of that automatic, I want to get there value compared to what we had last week.
Yeah. And Matt, I like I said, and like Eric said, I'll take the L on that as well. It wasn't that I didn't like, I stated explicitly, it's not that I don't like Montgomery. This is a pretty bad football team in a lot of bad weather out there in a tough place to play in Seattle. And it just didn't matter. And Nick Foles played pretty well and targeted Montgomery a ton. So man, that pass catching volume, like Adam or Eric alluded to, that makes a player a whole lot more appealing because Montgomery's yards per carry was trash on Sunday. He did everything through the air and getting into the end zone.
Yeah, I think he ran a little bit bad on the ground too. They're a team. It's just shocking to see Chicago as a 6-point favorite against anybody, but that's where we stand here. So you're expecting a little more efficiency from Montgomery in this spot against a New York Giants team that's just completely folded at this point in the year. Not sure on the status of Justin Fields, whether it's going to be Foles out there or Fields, but I honestly think Foles might help him. Just in the pass game, you're looking at more checkdowns with Foles at quarterback, and Montgomery was the main beneficiary. It's just such a bad team right now, devoid of talent. When you get a matchup like this late in the year and Montgomery's seeing the volume, everything lines up and it makes sense. And to Eric's point, we don't have the stone Justin Jackson near minimum lock play of the week. So I do think there's going to be more interest in these mid-price guys. There's a lot of value to be had, but just it's not the same kind of value.
Matt, where are you going with Jonathan Taylor, who's 9K on DraftKings? He's 10,000 flat on FanDuel. So yeah, if you're paying for or playing Jonathan Taylor, you're going to have to pay up for him, but it does feel like one of those spots, and they could get Carson Wentz back now with the new, with less days to quarantine, asymptomatic, whether you're vaccinated or not. So you could have Wentz back in the mix for this one, which would be pretty helpful. Is Taylor someone you want to prioritize, or can we go with a real balanced lineup this week?
I think you can definitely go balanced lineups. There's a lot of running backs where you're getting the same volume at a much cheaper price. The efficiency is the question. Are you going to get the same efficiency with the cheaper back? This week you might. Taylor's a little hard to talk about on Wednesday because it's not just Carson Wentz who's dealing with COVID. Their offensive line is in shambles right now, and some of them might play, some of them won't. And it's not just COVID. Like there's players out with personal issues, injuries. So we saw with Taylor in recent game, and probably the reason why he's not the MVP is he just can't take over a game. And when you can get players that have similar volume at a cheaper price, I think there's a lot of merit to just paying down at running back and then prioritizing a Cooper Kupp, Cooper Kupp, if you just want to talk the 9K players, it's really hard for him to fail compared to Taylor. So that's where I tend to side on this. I would rather pay down, especially if Taylor's going to be this highly owned. And I mean, 17% is not crazy.
It's not crazy. No, I mean, it's just, once again, Eric, you come into the same situation of, you have Ronald Jones, you have David Montgomery, you have Sonny Michel. There's not as much value as there was last time, but shit, if Singletary is single digits, I'm going to be getting the Singletary as well. He's getting a ton of work. He has 10 red zone carries over the last 2 games. There's a lot of these guys here that if we're just looking at popular options and not lower ownership, you're doing it wrong as well, because I think there's more than enough ways to get creative. If Eli Mitchell plays and is 8% or 5%, what are you doing with so many of these other backs that might not be super popular?
It depends. I mean, if Devin Singletary isn't popular, I mean, he was my large stand last week, and I think I would be happy to do that once again. I mean, we're seeing this either Zach Moss or Matt Breida being inactive. The dude is just absolutely owning this backfield for the first time ever, pretty much here in Buffalo. So I'm looking at him at 5,400 being a guy sub 10% that I would absolutely get to if the slate started now. I mean, we've seen some different tags here, but Sonny Michel is underpriced, 5,800. It's, you don't obviously have a 4,200 Justin Jackson, him inflated up to 6K, but I mean, we're looking at getting our guy Austin Eckler back here. And, I'm not necessarily sure exactly what that workload looks like for him. The carries have been, pretty stagnant around that 12 to 14 range here for the last 8 weeks. So in a game the Chargers need to win, though, I do expect him to be on the field an absolute ton. So I'd be fine getting up there as a pivot off of Taylor. Well, there's not really a pivot off Taylor. Taylor's the most secure thing for volume. But as you were saying, this entire mid 5 range and upper 5 range, I mean, I'm just in love with a guy like Sonny Michel here. for cash, for tournaments, for just about everything else. 90% of the snaps that we saw here with Henderson out there. I mean, it's kind of crazy how much he's taken over this backfield.
It is. It is. And he's actually not bad. I will say, though.
That's weird. Who said that once upon a time? Oh, but running backs, Sony Michel, oh, he's terrible. Eric, you're so dumb.
I don't think most people thought that. I'm sure
most people thought that because YouTube exists. And you can look at, we did a lot of those preseason videos, Lofty. Everybody was on my case about Sony Michel. I mean, it was insane. He's probably the person I got the most crap about.
That's true. And it's funny because if you actually look at Sony Michel's numbers, and they've never been horrible. They're not bad. But what I'm saying, if Sony Michel ends up being real chalky this week, this is actually a spot I want to get away from. And the reason is the Baltimore Ravens are a legitimate pass funnel defense right now. This is not to say that Joe Mixon didn't have a strong game last week. No, he did. And one of those touchdowns was through the air. But Baltimore's secondary is so ravaged that, you have Joe Burrow out there throwing for 500 yards or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And, while it might not be a T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and Odell Beckham is not a bad trio to have in this matchup. So, I like a lot getting to a full out stack for the Rams. And if that comes at the expense of getting the Sony Michel in those lineups, Matt, that's something I'm going to be going with. What are you doing at the rest of running back?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. There's a couple of interesting pivots, I think, when you get down in price range. Darrell Williams is probably going to be handling the lead back duties for Kansas City. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not expected to play. And we've seen Derek Gore play a decent amount for this team, but he's still just a change of pace at the end of the day. Right now, he's under 3%. We have Clyde Edwards-Helaire projected in. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is doubtful. So I would assume Darrell Williams jumps a little bit, but at the same time, you're still talking about a guy who's the lead back for the Kansas City Chiefs in a game that has the highest total on the board. And Darrell Williams, he's already been playing their third down back role. So he's a guy that has a lot of pass catching upside too. Rashad Penny for Seattle, he's taken over this backfield. And I know Seattle just lost to the Bears, but they're now 7.5 point favorites against Detroit, who's let you run on them all season. So I think Rashad Penny's another pivot right around the 6K mark where you can get to. And I mean, I'm going to have a lot of interest in these guys, depending on how ownership shakes out. If Montgomery and Sony come in as highly owned as they're projected to right now, these are just direct tournament pivots that I have a lot of interest in.
I like Rashad Penny a lot. You don't have to feel great about this backfield, but the matchup's excellent. The only caveat here, and this is the same caveat for a lot of guys in this very price range. The only thing is, what type of pass catching involvement do they have? That's the only thing. And that's what kind of leads everybody back to David Montgomery, Eric, because there's a lot of really good rushing or running backs here. How many of them are going to have that same opportunity if things go sideways or even in a neutral game script to get those pass catching attempts and those targets, which Montgomery has had? But yeah, Penny against Detroit, there's no doubt that's a very good matchup as well.
Yeah, but you're also sub 5%. It's all factored in. That's the thing about talking on these ownership shows is that you're very aware that Rashad Penny is not as good of a play, but is he, 1/5 of the play that we're looking at out of somebody like David Montgomery? I would say in tournaments, no, simply because, you're targeting upside, you're targeting touchdowns, you're targeting, 17 carries isn't exactly nothing there. Having the backfield there in Seattle is not nothing against such a porous Detroit team. So I'm definitely on the side of Matt there. If it were something where they're equal, of course, you're going to take David Montgomery and his security blanket that he has with targets, but his touchdown expectation is definitely, something where it's about equal to what you would say Rashad Penny's would be on the ground here in their similar spots. So that is always kind of one of the things that we maybe don't talk enough about, where it's, if the ownership, if the slate started now, there's just no way around it. You would want to get to a lot more Rashad Penny than sub 5% in this kind of a spot.
For sure. And yeah, we touched briefly on Devin Singletary, Eric, but both of us have been on him lately. Going back to the past 2 weeks, this has been someone that you could see this coming, given that his snap counts had risen. Even against Tampa, they didn't run the ball, but he was on the field for almost the whole game. And then even last week with Zach Moss active again, and who knows, he could be inactive again this week. It's strange how they've decided to do that. Devin Singletary was still the guy, 6 targets, 18 total looks. And the biggest thing for me, this guy's getting red zone touches. He's getting goal line carries in back-to-back weeks. He's getting looks inside the 10-yard line. If you're Devin Singletary and you're getting those type of looks, that's what separates you from the Devin Singletary that needed to break a 40-yard touchdown early in the season or last year or the year before that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no way around it. Like Devin Singletary in this spot is just different. And I love when this happens for a player, when there's a drastic change in role, because people are just the exact same thing with Sony Michel. He sucks. Devin Singletary is terrible. He always burns me. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, this is not the way you play fantasy football. You look at what the opportunity is. You see basically what his projected workload is going to be. I think having some of these other wide receivers out probably helped a little bit in terms of just like getting him out on the field. Although Isaiah McKenzie, he ended up performing pretty well, but like legitimately, I don't see any way around it. Like, you have to be rostering these guys so long as there's opportunity there. It's the same thing with Chase Edmonds. Completely different situation if you don't have James Conner out there. And we'll see what ends up happening here for week 17. But like, that's a guy who was projected for no ownership, because of course we're going to project James Conner in here early in the week coming off of a heel issue. But like, you're just looking at like Chase Edmonds in a completely different role. And so, yeah, maybe he's burned everybody since week 5. Oh, I do not care. If you give me the sole backfield in any one of these spots in a must-win game against a Dallas team that, you know, obviously is playing well, but Arizona needs wins just to even like secure a playoff spot at this point, let alone, you know, the 1 seed, which might have been aspirations of old. Like, Chase Edmonds would be another dude who just falls into that bucket of guys that you have to look at differently than you did before.
Yeah, if Connor doesn't play, I mean, that's significant. Matt, you got anything else at running back, even if it's kind of a prospective play right now, barring injury, or sorry, judging from what we're going to get in injury news with a Connor or anybody else?
I think we should talk Rojo for a little bit. I was surprised to see him so low. And I think part of that is the long run from Keyshawn Vaughn. Part of the knock on Ronald Jones is going to be pass catching. And he didn't really play on third downs. That definitely wasn't his role. But Tampa Bay is such a high pass rate overall that he's just going to work his way into some checkdowns when Tom Brady's changing the play call, things like that. And you're still going up against the New York Jets here. So even if the pass catching role is not as secure as some other players, 13-point favorites against the worst defense in football, game script should at least be working in his favor. So I thought he would be a little higher owned, and maybe this comes up throughout the week. But right now, Ronald Jones is still a pretty middling play in terms of ownership. And the last guy I'm going to mention here, this is just purely speculative, purely tournament-based play. But Dare Gumbawale played 82% of snaps for Jacksonville.
Yes, he did.
Oh, shit.
Like, this guy, he went to Wisconsin. He was there when I was there, so I'm very familiar with his game. He's non-explosive pass-catching third down back. So he does fill the role that James Robinson plays. But I mean, like, this is about as bad of a running back play as you could get as a 15.5-point underdog for a team with a 13 implied total. But he's on the field almost every snap, so I feel like I got to say his name.
15.5-point dogs, yeah.
Oops.
I hear you, though, with Ronald Jones. If the Vaughn touchdown didn't happen, I think we'd probably be having a different conversation. But at the same time, it's not like Ronald Jones was completely ineffective last game. Sure, he was not efficient on the ground, but he had 20 carries. He still had 20 carries in that game, 23 total looks. He had 3 targets. Now they're facing the New York Jets. It is not out of the realm of possibility whatsoever, Eric, that you get a 2 rushing touchdown game from Ronald Jones here. I mean, look, I've been burnt more on Ronald Jones than I think any other player in the history of the NFL, not named Miles Sanders. But
here's the thing. Le'Veon Bell, though, we got to have this conversation too.
No,
he's going to get integrated in some capacity.
No, he's not.
And yes, he is.
No,
he
he'll get 3. He'll get like 5.
Think he's an insurance policy out there? I don't think so. I think he probably
5 snaps a game, 10, maybe something like that.
Okay, well, Keyshawn Vaughn played 36%. So, I mean, we're talking about Ronald Jones 50%, 60% of snaps. He's always been in the doghouse with Arians. He's the best running back that they have. Maybe he just gets all of the volume there, but then you're basically touchdown hunting here for a team that loves to throw at the goal line for a Tom Brady-led offense. So, like, you know, I don't know. Yes, absent Leonard Fournette, for me, it's going to come down to I'm in the same boat with Matt, right? I expect him to be higher owned come Sunday. And if I assume such things like that, then you're looking at a spot where you kind of need to hit the brakes. But at his current level of ownership, I think it would totally be worth it, considering, a near 30-point total against the Jets here for Tampa Bay.
All right.
You're not a fan of that.
What's up?
You just love Ronald Jones this week?
No, it's not even that. I mean, I have a tough time looking at snap counts when you're looking at touches as well. And like you could have a guy that doesn't play a ton of snaps, but if he's out there and he's getting all of the carries, it's a whole lot. Like if you're out there for 95% of snaps and you're just blocking and you're not getting targeted or you're running wind sprints, I'd rather have the guy that's out there for 50% that has 23 touches. That's all.
6,300 as opposed to 5,100. He's a lot different play. And I think that's probably what we're seeing with the ownership. People are pretty sensitive to pricing, and that change and not seeing the role get it to like 65-70% of snaps, which would be what I think most people were expecting in that spot. How many people thought Keyshawn Vaughn was going to play a meaningful part of anything in that game? Keyshawn Vaughn went from being just a glorified special teamer, playing 60-70% of special team snaps to playing 36% of the offensive snaps. That's just kind of like
running back snaps are like he had 7 carries.
Yeah. But he had the big, he's just on the field. He's taking away opportunity where Ronald Jones could actually see some passing volume.
All right, let's keep going here. PrizePicks. We can talk about PrizePicks all day. We don't have all day, but I can tell you, if you haven't signed up there yet, you're insane, because they've already given you the $100 match deposit bonus when you sign up using the promo code Awesemo. It's a daily player prop contest. They're awesome. There's no juice on either side. You're just taking the over or the under on all of that. There's no sharks, no optimizers, no mass entries, anything like that. You're building lineups, 2, 3, 4, or 5 prop lineups, and you can 10x if you hit all 5. But if you only hit 4 or 5, you still 2x. You still make money back if you hit 3 or 5. You're not getting that on any traditional site parlays anywhere else. So take advantage of it. It looks nice. The user experience is fantastic, whether it's prizepicks.com, whether it's the App Store, the Google Play Store, doesn't matter. Check it out. Use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO. Get $100 when you sign up and deposit for the first time. And if you want to, say you know basketball, you know hockey, you know football, you can mix them all in to one lineup. You don't have to do just basketball or just football. You can do cross sport entries and all of that good stuff. You can do the power plays where you do 4-player lineup and you have to hit all 4 to 10x. And you can use all of our free player prop tools at Awesemo. You can use Odd Shopper, totally free every day of the week, to get the best edge that you're going to get. Now, all of that is great. Let me conclude by saying, if you haven't signed up yet, you get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $90 value when you sign up using our link and deposit at PrizePicks. You'll hear from them or hear back from us 48 hours later to redeem your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So all of that on top of it, $90 value, Awesemo Plus Platinum. Use the link in the description or the one that Mike's throwing into chat. Check it out, prizepicks.com, App Store, Google Play, wherever you want to find it. All right, wide receiver, Matt. Talk to me about the top. Cooper Kupp against Baltimore. This is a very good spot for him.
Yep, and Cooper Kupp was 50% owned last week. There's a chance he might be more. And right now he's projected for 18. That surely comes up. I would be shocked if he's anything less than 30. You're starting to get to the point where, unless we get these egregious mispricings where we have Justin Jackson as the stone min, he's getting close to the area where you have to make significant enough concessions where Cooper Kupp can become a liability in your lineup. But ultimately, I think there's a lot of running back value where we don't necessarily need to have these discussions just yet. It's more so on like FanDuel, where he's become egregiously expensive. With DraftKings at 9,500, I think you can still talk about him. And I know what you're going to say, like Baltimore has no secondary right now. All that is true, but it's still at 9,500. If he's going to win you a tournament himself, he's going to have to put up like 40 or 50 points at this salary. Otherwise, he's just not differentiating you from your lineup, and the points he scores at his price, they're just not going to differentiate you either.
I totally agree with you. I have no arguments against that whatsoever. Eric, what are you thinking up top with some of these high-owned, high-priced wide receivers coming into week 17? Huge 14-game slate.
Yeah, I'm very excited to get my Chipotle from you too. 52% Cooper Kupp and the Millie Maker. Look at that.
What did we say?
What was his price?
42% was the over-under.
9,100 he was?
I got to say, though, it's kind of disingenuous of you, given how many COVID-19 things and how many injuries popped up throughout the week when we talked about this on Wednesday. Just throwing it out there, Justin
maybe
Jackson,
you should factor that in a little bit.
Min Sal, Justin Jackson. I don't know.
I'm just saying it was on the board. It was on the board Wednesday last week. Eckler was already on the list. So I will say, I think Justin Jackson, that's exactly the reason that I don't think he gets to like 50% this week, is coming off a week where he didn't win anybody a tournament. There were lots of winning lineups with him, but he wasn't the reason you did anything at 24.3. He won't be the reason you do anything this week either, even if he puts up 50, simply because ownership, when somebody's that popular, you either have them or you don't. And it's not really like a question. He's just such a key point of every single slate at this point in time. And you should know by now that if you're fading, you understand the upside that comes with Cooper Kupp. I saw something where it's like 19 straight games he's had 5+ catches here now. I mean, he's just adding ridiculous stats to ridiculous stats. Deebo Samuel, I'm never going to get right ever. I'm definitely not going to be playing him at 8,700, no matter what. But Tyreek Hill, coming off of an absolute bust beyond a bust here. I mean, this is the ultimate bounce back spot here. Cincinnati's defense really hasn't had to do anything special. I mean, if you have Joe Burrow going completely nuts in that spot, that'll do it. But Tyreek Hill, you're going to get Kelsey back here this week. I believe they just enacted that to make it 6 days for the dealio for the NFL as well. So Tyreek Hill with Kelsey out there, maybe he does. Say that again.
You say dealio?
I don't know. I'm from the Midwest. I say stupid shit all the time, Waffy.
Sorry, God.
Yes, the dealio. God, Tyreek Hill is a good play. Moving on. It's fine. It's fine.
Must have been
it's just I came into the room and Matt's like, we must be protocol today. We are focused.
Right.
We are focused. Again, I can't blame him. The dude has had nobody is running worse than Matt Kajewski in the content streets.
What, just from all the games being canceled?
Oh, yeah. I would love to wake up early morning, put my article together, fix projections for college football games, and then have them get canceled every night. That would be enjoyable.
Yeah, it sucks.
He's not even reacting. He's just a robot.
No,
You're the Terminator.
I don't think he's heard a word we've said in the past 2 or 3 minutes.
Oh, he's smirking.
Those are some pretty nice words. What can you do with the games being canceled? At least we still get some being played.
Yeah, what's the dealio, man?
What else are you watching on TV at nights to fill time?
That's funny. You think I'm watching TV, but
you're just sitting there looking at the wall, doing nothing.
I will say I did watch the Monday night game, so there's that.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah,
that
beautiful
what a
performance.
Shit game that was. Huh?
Man, it's been so bad.
That game was terrible.
I thought we actually had some decent football last weekend.
Like what?
Well, the Cincinnati game was just exciting.
Oh yeah, there were some good games. I was at the Eagles game and we scored 31 in the second half. That was cool.
Yeah, there were some pretty good games.
First half was dreadful.
I mean, like the Houston LA game was really exciting. Maybe that's probably an indictment on the Chargers, but there were some pretty exciting football games.
I hear you. And wait, who even played on Monday? I can't even remember now. I just know it was bad.
Not the Saints.
Oh yeah, my God, what a horrible football. Saints and Dolphins.
Oh my God.
Just terrible. But I think up at the top, Matt, you've got Antonio Brown. And I just don't really see, at least on speaking specifically to DraftKings right now, because this is a lot different. This is one of the specific spots that you were referring to earlier, where Antonio Brown's 8,500 on FanDuel, 8,500 for Antonio Brown. What's he at on Yahoo? Let me see.
Yahoo. You can play whoever you want on Yahoo.
I know. 28.
That's actually pretty expensive for Yahoo.
That's pretty good.
That's actually pretty good pricing.
I mean,
DraftKings is the most inefficient here.
By far.
It's 61.
DraftKings ruined a lot of the wide receiver spot here with Antonio Brown. I just hate it.
It sucks, but I am going to be playing a lot of Antonio Brown against the Jets.
Same. It sucks.
My thoughts on the top of the position. I think there's a lot of room to pivot away from Kupp. Like Antonio Brown on DraftKings specifically outside of like large field tournaments, if you're playing like small fields and stuff, he's a guy I'm just going to eat. There's obviously merit to fading him in the 100,000 field tournaments, your Millie Maker style stuff. But I think I'm comfortable eating Antonio Brown at his price rather than Cooper Kupp. And we have alternatives to Cooper Kupp in the expensive range. None of them have the same projection. We'll just get that out there. But like Stephon Diggs, he's 1.5K cheaper. Tyreek Hill's a little bit less than that, but still pretty close. He's only at 8,300. A guy like AJ Brown, who's coming off a monstrous double-digit target game himself, is at 7,200. He's over 2K cheaper than Cooper Kupp.
Yep.
Even if one of these receivers puts up like 90, 85% of what Cooper Kupp does, if you're saving 2K in salary, that's going to be huge for your lineups. So I think I'm going to try to differentiate a lot at the top, obviously with my stacks. But I don't think you have to get too cute right now with the cheap guys. I think you can just play a guy like Antonio Brown and then try to differentiate at the top of the position.
AJ Brown is such an interesting play this week. I know Miami's defense has played better. I know the secondary is not bad, but 16 targets last game, Eric, just a pure alpha performance that you've been looking for from AJ Brown. And it proved that they really needed somebody like this to come back for them. They lost Henry, right? Julio Jones has been a shell of himself, of his old self. AJ Brown comes back and is purely dominant. He caught 11 of 16 targets for 145 yards, had a deep touchdown against a respectable enough San Francisco team. I think there are a lot of options in this, like Jamar Chase. What's ownership going to look like on him? Mm-hmm. What's Diggs going to look like? And then let's just be clear here. Mike Evans could play. Mm-hmm. If it's only 5 or 6 days, whatever it is, he could play. He also has the hamstring issue too, though. If that's the case, then we have a different discussion on Antonio Brown, and we have a different discussion on Mike Evans with a 30-point total against the Jets.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I think everything Matt said is very applicable where, obviously if you get 85, 90% of whatever Kupp does, and, if Kupp puts up 30, you don't necessarily need him if you can find some of these other guys, the T. Higgins 40 spot that we had the other week, even Jalen Waddle, the amount of receiving volume that guy's getting is just absurd too. So in a PPR setting, dynamic playmaker, but I'm with you. AJ Brown was my big stand and showdown. Absolutely loved him. I got to say, Tennessee handled him really, really nicely. AFC South is trash. They were 9-5 and they just kind of coasted there for a while. Obviously played a lot more competitive games than you expect with every skill position player out there. But AJ Brown came back. He looks healthy. He looks fantastic right out of the gate here. Miami's obviously played very, very well here of late. But looking at that game, AJ Brown, Jalen Waddle, definitely two pieces that I'm very high on for tournaments. And then, of course, like Rashad Penny, but like Tyler Lockett, I know that we had, a spot where DK Metcalf ended up getting that touchdown catch early in the game. Nobody else from Seattle really got there. But against Detroit, I'm really happy to fire up some more Tyler Lockett. No doubt about it. 6,400. You're getting a number one there. You can make the argument Metcalf is, just had a down year here. But for whatever reason, the rapport has definitely been there with Lockett and it hasn't been there with Metcalf. And I'm happy to just go right back to the well on Lockett at reduced ownership.
Dude, Ben Penn pointed this out yesterday. Metcalf had a 41-yard touchdown, or was it a 42-yard touchdown?
41, yep.
41, and finished with 2 receptions for 41 yards. It's crazy. Great. That team right now, I truly have no idea what to make of that team at all. I don't even know if I want to target anything from Seattle at this point. I really don't. Maybe that's Penny. The wrong move. But
didn't you like Penny with Matt?
The passing game.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. I think Tyler Lockett, just from a pure volume standpoint, obviously Metcalf had a big play early there, but for whatever reason, there's just no rapport there at the moment. He's not even really looking Metcalf's way very often. So
it's crazy.
I think coming a week back off of the COVID list here for Tyler Lockett, 3 for 6 there. Chicago, that game, they started kind of packing it in, and Chicago ends up getting the 2 late scores. They go for 2 and game over. You lost, which is probably a good thing for Seattle at this point.
Probably is. That team stinks, man.
Yeah, horrendous.
It's really bad. Matt, what do you make of Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is just, whether it's Goff or Tim Boyle, this guy's getting peppered with looks, and my God, he looks really good for a young rookie wide receiver coming out of nowhere late in the season.
Yeah, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Thought he was a good prospect coming out of USC. He plays a lot like in the slot, so he's more your possession style receiver. He is kind of like a similar workload to a Jalen Waddle, where he's used a lot around the line of scrimmage. So he doesn't really have explosive plays, but he makes up for it with just raw volume. And he did so with Tim Boyle. That's why I got off of him last week, mistakenly so. And now with Jared Goff returning from the COVID list, you should see at least an uptick in efficiency here. I don't think there's a lot in this game environment in terms of shootout potential. I'm probably not going to be stacking it whatsoever. And I'm not I'm not very interested in running a lot of correlation here. But if I am trying to run someone back on the other side of Rashad Penny, it is going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown based on that volume. I think he's a reasonable pivot off Antonio Brown, but ultimately, like, what is the scoring opportunity for either team in this game? The total's super low. Detroit's implied for just barely over 17 points. And Seattle's running such low play volume that it's going to depress the plays overall in the game. Like, Seattle is playing a historically slow offense. There hasn't been an offense slower than Seattle since 2018. So that's like why I'm not going to play any Lockett or Metcalf. You basically need one of them to hit an 80-yard touchdown to pay off tournament winning salary at that price. It's just a bad game.
Will McNeil said, did I miss Laffy touting Eagles running backs again? No, Will, actually you didn't. I know you're just joking, but it is a good point though, Eric, because if Jordan Howard does happen to miss this game, Miles Sanders is already out. You're going to have to look at Boston Scott. So thanks for that reminder, Will.
Yeah, looking forward to that. That always goes well, right?
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, if they run another 40 times, I don't know.
Then they'll give Kenneth Gainwell looks. I mean, that's how it works, right?
But it doesn't matter.
Play
Again,
the two.
What?
play the number two in every spot, it seems like.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Doesn't matter though, because if you got 40 carries and 20 of them go to one guy and 15 go to another and 5 or 6 go to Hurts, you just got to see who's going to get those goal line carries. But
yeah, it's gross. I mean, and I will say DK already priced up Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, 4,900 and 5K for both of them. Jordan Howard, 5,200. He would be the guy that you're looking at. Exactly.
Glad you took a proactive approach on the backup Philly running backs, but you forgot about Sony Michel. DraftKings. Really happy you were proactive with Boston Scott.
Dude, Jordan Howard at 5,200, if he plays, is totally fine. I know it sounds crazy. It's totally
just think of the
fine.
sentence you just said, and then play it over.
Totally
in your head.
fine. And he was targeted 4 times last game before he got hurt.
Yeah,
totally fine, man.
It's dumb.
But hey, do you guys have any interest? There you go, Will. That was for you, by the way. Do you guys have any interest in some of these lower owned wide receivers? If you're looking down at, I mean, there's nothing super exciting down here, but there are going to be some guys like, okay, 52-point total, Matt. You have Amari Cooper not getting a lot of ownership. Jalen Waddle's not pulling a lot of ownership right now. There are some players down here that are, Jamar Chase is getting essentially nothing right now. This could be one of those weeks where you get to really good wide receivers that just aren't getting a lot of ownership for one reason or another.
For sure. I see the 2 best games on the slate from a total perspective in Kansas City versus Cincinnati, and then Arizona versus Dallas, all coming in with pretty low ownership. And on the Kansas City side, you have Tyreek Hill, respectably owned. I think Kelsey coming back, maybe we could talk about him as a tight end, but all of the Cincinnati receivers are pretty low owned right now. And Jamar Chase had a fantastic game. He just didn't score all the touchdowns that T. Higgins did. He still went over 100 yards. So Jamar Chase is an excellent pivot in the expensive range. And then I think this Dallas-Arizona game is still getting a lot of respect from bookmakers. I know people are afraid of the Dallas defense right now, but luckily they can mitigate some of the Dallas pass rush with Kyler's mobility. And I think maybe you don't stack the Arizona side, but you could certainly run back an AJ Green, a Christian Kirk, whoever it may be, Rondale if he's healthy. And then you can look to some of these Dallas pass catchers. We finally saw Dallas kind of get off the schneid last week with Dak Prescott absolutely dismantling the Washington defense in half of football. Arizona's defense, they've kind of regressed. Coming into the year, we thought they were going
Arizona has regressed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's, if I said Dallas, I meant Arizona.
No. I'm sorry, Matt. I meant Arizona. You said their defense. I'm saying Arizona in general has regressed. They've looked horrible on both sides of the ball. My fault. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of that's the offense. Like the flaws of Cliff Kingsbury are finally showing themselves. Like you can't just kick field goals in the red zone. It's cost them a lot of games. But if this game still's at 51 point total, and even if you just stack Dak, Amari, CD, and then you run back an Arizona receiver, I think there's enough play volume and the total's high enough and the Arizona receivers are cheap enough where you can make this stack work. And I have a ton of interest in this at lower ownership.
You know who I want to run back there is Zach Ertz, Eric. This dude's been heavily involved lately. Is he Kyler Murray's favorite target already? It feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, it would seem 13 and 11 targets right out of the gate. The rapport seems to be there. Obviously, you know, that massive Seattle game, Zach Ertz, or sorry, it wasn't Kyler Murray that was out there, but like we're looking at Zach Ertz being an important part of this football team, especially if you're not going to be having Hopkins out there. It just makes all the sense in the world. Zach Ertz has been a reliable tight end. I would say, I mean, this is kind of a different dude. Part of it is, you know, maybe Carson Wentz of old, where, you know, he didn't necessarily see the ceiling. Along with Dallas Goedert out there, he's kind of come to fruition now in the absence of Zach Ertz. So a lot of things that were kind of limiting his upside, and now there's really no limits on it. I think that you're dead on with Zach Ertz being a guy 5,200 on DK that we're going to be looking at. But you know, these other ancillary options, of course, you can take shots on Christian Kirk. It seems like every single week here, this is Wednesday, and by Sunday, we're going to have a number of cheap pieces, whether, you know, Antoine Wesley, you know, was a guy for me last week, and I don't really know if I can do Antoine Wesley again. I think I got bailed out a little bit by a touchdown there, you know, for the 2-gamer from Saturday, but like legitimately looking up and down the entire board, like there's just like the Byron Pringles. You've even got a guy like Deshaun Jackson, who, you know, is 0.4% ownership, but he played over 50% of the snaps. And anytime you get him on the field for that allotment of numbers, it only takes one to really get there in that capacity. We all know that. So there's just a number of these sub 4K or guys lingering around that 4K range that, given how unpredictable COVID has been, and guys, we just don't know who's going to be on the list come Friday or Saturday, there's definitely going to be some opportunity under 4K. So you just kind of want to be ready to fire that up.
I got to say though, is it really possible that these secondary Rams receivers, and Eric or Matt, whichever one of you guys wants to take this, is it really possible that these guys are coming in around, you know, 2-3%? Because if that's the case, if there's ever a time to just roll the dice on maybe some volume going away from Cup, or just enough volume getting distributed everywhere at 1 and 3% against the Ravens, that feels like a really good time to take that risk.
Yeah, 100% agree. The target distribution is really condensed there. You basically have 3 receivers on the field every single play. It's Kupp, it's Van Jefferson, and it's Odell. You have Higbee on the field almost every single play. So I like when you have these very narrow distributions of targets. If the Ravens try to take away Cooper Kupp with the practice squad level players they have in their secondary, it's going to cause a lot of issues. And we saw this exploited last week. I think Stafford and the Rams offense is of the same caliber. The total in this game is not quite as interesting. I was actually surprised to see it at 47. I thought it would come in higher. Maybe that speaks to the quarterback uncertainty for the Baltimore situation. Lamar's practicing today, and I imagine if he's active, this total will climb. But I think that only speaks to the shootout potential of the game even more.
For sure. Eric, you want to add anything to that, or you want to move on to tight ends here?
Yeah, I think that was a pretty, if I had to take a shot on one, I know Van Jefferson hasn't been as good the last 2, but he's $400 cheaper. I think he carries the exact same upside as a guy like Odell Beckham. And, you know, he's 1% as opposed to Odell, who always gets like a little bit of ownership simply because of the name recognition.
If you want to get 25% off everything on the site, Awesemo plus Platinum for the week, use the promo code NFL Strategy Show, all caps, all one word. Ownership, player projections, top stack tool, boom bust tool, lineup builder. You can do the Fantasy Cruncher add-on now for a week, which is huge for those of you guys that want to try it. All of that good stuff. All these tools created by Awesemo himself, Alex Baker, #1 ranked player out there. And as you'll see from our Hall of Fame segment, people are winning good money. A lot of money, as a matter of fact, using all of these tools that we've got over at Awesemo. So check it out if you'd like, and join our premium Discord, our office hours where you get the pros helping you better your game. A good community over there. NFL Strategy Show, all one word, all caps. If you want to get 25% off your first week, I will also point out that you are going to have the postseason coming up soon. If you're looking to wait, maybe you're a little tight. The wallet's a little tight right now after the holidays. I don't know if they want me saying this, but if there was ever a time to try something out for cheap, we'll have the NFL Express Pass through the playoffs for NFL. It's $3.95. And if you do that at the beginning of, say, the postseason, you're going to have an insane amount of value there because all of our showdown tools are included, all of them. And now you've got that Monday night football game in the wild card weekend. You've got the Saturday games, the Sunday games. That'll be something to take advantage of. So if you want to hold out until then, check it out. Otherwise, NFL Strategy Show, all one word, all caps. And if you want to get to the free content today that we have on the site, always got a little free content that we're rotating in front of paywall. NBA player projections and NHL player rankings free today. All right, Eric, tight end at the top. We're finally back to a point where you've got a lot of expensive tight ends at the top.
Yeah, it makes this slate really fun. I think this is, if I had to pick one thing that I do enjoy, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, George Kittle. We haven't seen all three of them on the same slate pretty much all year. I'm going to say almost all year. It seems like, Kittle was out there for a while and it just, they've never landed on the same main slate. So I think just having three options like that, they're all going to be low owned because you have Antonio Brown, Cooper Kupp, a lot of the wide receiver options that are going to get prioritized. But I think there's enough running back, like mid 5K, upper 5K value that opens up the path to some of these guys. And it doesn't matter. We talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. Even if it's the dusty Tim Boyle. I know that's Makachevsky's favorite player ever, but looking at the tight end spot, Mark Andrews just continues to smash regardless. He's had three different quarterbacks now, and it's just continuing to roll no matter what. Massive volume, massive involvement here, having just that kind of security. It's ridiculous. 7,400. I think, are we at the point where we're talking about him next to Travis Kelce and George Kittle being just as good of a play? And I'm saying yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Like,
I don't
incredible.
think it's
and the best game environment, like the best run back for the Rams. Mark Andrews is just outrageous.
I don't think it's even a conversation to be had anymore of whether or not Mark Andrews is, the elite of the elite. Up on the season, he is the tight end one by 30 points. Yeah.
I didn't know that. That is fantastic.
Yeah. Granted, Kelce missed a game, but still, I mean, Matt, Eric makes a good point here. And it's frustrating because I've been getting these stacks with Mark Andrews run backs, but every week I just seem to not put all the pieces together perfectly. Like I'll go Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Marquez Valdez-Scantling with the Andrews run back. Seems great until you realize that Huntley was the QB1 that week, and then last week you'll do something where you have, I don't even know, but for 3 weeks in a row now, you have Mark Andrews with double-digit targets, 100+ yards, 1+ touchdowns, and 30+ fantasy points. He has been the preeminent tight end in the league over the last month, for sure, hands down.
Yeah, and I think the way the Ravens are playing right now with a porous secondary is creating the shootout environments where he can continue this production. Lamar returning would only be a boost here. I think it's positive to see him performing with Huntley and Josh Johnson, but Lamar coming back will be a boost to this offense overall. Again, Lamar's practicing today, so I think that's positive. The one interesting game theory aspect of this particular slate that I'm looking at right now is you have all these elite tight ends, but none of them are in the top 3 of ownership. Travis Kelce is drawing the most at 8% right now. George Kittle, he's a little bit lower at 4%, and then Andrews is coming in at 3%. Usually on these slates, especially where you only have 1 or 2 of these guys, I think the conversation is, can they bury me? Like when there's only 2 of them, if they both fail, then sure, you can punt at tight end and maybe they score enough where it can overcome a medium game from Kelce, Kittle, whoever it may be. But when you have all 3 of them on the slate, what are the chances that all 3 of these guys fail? And that's what I start asking myself and why I want to prioritize them. You add in the lower ownership, and I think it just makes more sense. Like, I'm not sure there's too many of these punt tight ends that can actually outscore Kelce, Kittle, or Andrews if one of them has a ceiling game.
That's a great point. It is. And Eric, I'll throw this over to you here because I do think that we could make this at least a little bit interesting. I agree with Matt. I don't think a Brevin Jordan is getting you there this week. And, Ben talked about it yesterday when we were on the show with Jordan and myself, that it does feel like one of those weeks where you're going to need, or it feels like one of those weeks where you're going to need a good game from your tight end. But at least let me point out here and get your take on this, that you do have Zach Ertz at 5,200, right? Zach Ertz could give you is a 25 fantasy point game from Ertz out of the question? Absolutely not, given his targets. I know it hasn't been there recently, but the volume has been. Dallas Goedert against Washington. It's hard to say what you're getting from him, but he was coming off 2 monster games prior to last week. One of them coming against that same Washington team, Dalton Schultz, in a 50+ total game. And then let me just say, if everyone wants to get off Gronkowski because he had one bad game where he just wasn't needed, that's fine. But when Gronk comes up with 2 touchdowns in the first half this week, and you're wondering how that came about, it's because Gronkowski catches touchdowns. So I love those 7K guys, but I think that 5K range, low 5K range, and then Gronk kind of on an island by himself in that 6K, there are different spots to get to without having to fully punt.
Yeah, so I mean, that upper range, you only have 10 players that are more expensive on DraftKings this week than what Mark Andrews is. So like, if those players land into your lineups, the Cooper Kupps, the Jonathan Taylors, the Tyreek Hills, if you're trying to get to like 2 or 3 of those guys in a lineup, you're bypassing the 7K range. You just kind of have to. And, obviously you want to get this tight end spot right, because with those 3 massive ceilings, you kind of need it. But if those other positions, the 30, 40 spots that you're getting at other positions, if you need that savings, I have no problem going to Zach Ertz. Even Dallas Goedert is not really projecting out that well here for us. And obviously Jalen Hurts out there, but like, they are limited in terms of skill player options. No Miles Sanders, possibly no Jordan Howard. I think that's a slight bump for a guy like Dallas Goedert, who's definitely had slate winning upside here 2 of the last 3 weeks. It just didn't happen to be last week. So looking at Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, both of them make sense kind of in that range. And, I'm with you guys. The Brevin Jordans going down and punting and trying to find 1 touchdown and 10 points. That ain't going to be it for me this week. There's too many ceilings, too many places. So I'm pretty much drawing the line at like probably Gerald Everett, I would say, would be like the last guy. I'm really not going 4K. Tyler Higbee, you could probably involve in game stacks, but 4K down, there's just no shot for me on this slate.
Yeah. Shit. I don't know if I want to go below Goddard or Dalton Schultz at this point.
It's tough. And that's the opportunity cost of the slate. Like Gerald Everett has shown at least a little bit of involvement here, where I would be okay against Detroit going there. 3 pretty decent weeks, obviously very touchdown dependent, but what tight ends aren't other than Andrews, Kelsey, and Kittle.
I get it. And even with a Hunter Henry, it's like, do I really want to chase a 25-point game in the chances that I get a 1-point game? Like, for real though, he's really volatile.
It's gross
in this offense. Gross. Matt, do you have anybody down below that you want to get to?
A certain price range?
Yeah, I'm saying like below the Schultz and the Goddards and the Ertzes.
Kyle Pitts. I mean, I played some Kyle Pitts last week and I never feel good about it. But Kyle Pitts is historically speaking, having one of the best rookie seasons a tight end has ever had. He's going to finish second, I think, in most receiving yards by a rookie tight end all time. And he just hasn't scored any touchdowns. So, I mean, if he scores a touchdown, Kyle Pitts has the ability to put up a score of a Kittle, a Kelsey, but he just doesn't have the same scoring expectation. He's not in the explosive offenses that these other guys are in. And Matt Ryan playing quarterback is going to constantly be a problem for him. But if he does, by the grace of God, find the end zone, he has that ceiling.
By the grace of God.
I think it would take a miracle.
That's worse than Delio. That's way more Midwest than Delio.
Yeah. No, come on. How is Delio Midwest? Forget about geography. It's just
Eric. Nobody in the Midwest says Delio. Nobody says Delio.
Here's the Delio. No, everybody says that.
Nobody
says that.
Where it's from. It's more about when it's from, and we're talking the 1990s.
Well, I'm a 90s kid. That's what it is.
Were you born
I'm
in the
a
90s
kid. I was born in 93.
I was born in 87, but I mean, grew up in the 90s. Like, I'm a straight up 90s kid.
You're my age?
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
September 19th.
Okay.
87.
I'm 87 too. Let me tell you something, man. Could we have been any luckier growing up in the 90s? I'm serious. What nuts. A time to grow up. Pogs.
No, that's the first thing off his Pogs. I was thinking like GoldenEye in the basement. Like
quad screen GoldenEye with the boys
the nuts.
Was using the cheats to get up into the air vents.
Odd job, just cheating, just straight up cheating.
But what I'm saying is shit like Pogs. What an odd thing that people just for a good month love. You remember going outside onto like the sidewalk with the slammers and playing Pogs?
Yep. Those, right? I mean, now people are going out playing Pokemon Catch on their phones and stuff. And I'm like, no.
Hit by cars.
Yeah. Get out of here with that weak shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? The 90s were incredible. Not only that, but you had Kelly Kapowski. You had like all of these like unbelievable Pamela Anderson Baywatch. I mean, like truly growing up, being a dude in the Midwest, just like being able to just consume that content. It doesn't get a whole lot better. Kids these days, now it has to be like artistic. It has to like just come on. Like when you're 10 years old, let's be serious.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Yeah. Watching what was that movie? Was it Striptease? My buddy's brother was older, and there was like remember the first nude scene you see as a kid in those like rated R kind of rated X movies, but they were in theaters. You know what I'm talking about?
Titanic. Yeah, you just rewatched the one clip of Titanic with Kate Winslet over and over and over. And why does the tape on Titanic not work? Oh, well, I just love that movie. That's what it is.
It just sucks that like TikTok is a thing. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I know.
It's true.
You two boomers don't like TikTok. Unreal.
It's just gonna melt people's brains, Matt. I'm sorry, but it is. It's not good.
I feel it happening to me. I can't say it's a good use of my time, but I love it.
And you know what? I do have some boomer attributes because I'm definitely the guy that's like, when I was a kid, we'd be outside playing hockey in 10-degree weather. You know, right. Now they're sitting inside learning how to do the fucking shuffle. So I get it. But
breaking phones like Matt Kajewski over there. Just, you love your TikTok, don't you, Matt? It's so gross.
I'm addicted to the internet. I cannot help myself.
Carl said Topanga from Boy Meets World. Yeah, dude.
Yes.
Topanga.
Fire.
Yeah. Winnie from Winnie's still
Wonder
pretty
Years.
hot.
Yeah. She's still got it.
Yeah, she still got it. Yeah. Oh man, Sandlot. Like I'm telling you, we grew up in a great.
That's what I'm saying. Do the 80s have those girls? No, they don't. The 90s had it. The 90s had it constantly.
90s had everything. They also had Jenkos. So I mean, I've made some mistakes. But... Matt, did you not wear Jenkos?
Dude, I don't know half the things you guys are talking about.
All right. I know you got to get out of here.
Baby. No, he's just like, oh my God, we almost got through a show. We almost did. And that's just like, please.
We were doing so well here. We were doing so well.
Nirvana, hell yeah, that too. I mean, bands, 90s bands over.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Nirvana. Oh, come on. I'm telling you, it was a great time to be alive. Sublime.
Yes.
Sublime. We had a good run, Eric. We had a good run.
We did.
Awesemo Hall of Fame. These guys also had a damn good run. That's why they're getting inducted. Oh, that was solid.
Wow.
If you want to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, all you got to do is go to awesemo.com/avatar. Download it, use it on DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, wherever it is. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, whether it's the Millie, doesn't matter. The Millie, it could be a quarter arcade. It could be the nickel. And tweet your wins at Awesemo, HOF. It's Awesemo Hall of Fame. Include Eric, Matt, and myself in those as well, because we like seeing this stuff. And win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you do. So you get inducted. You get the $90 Awesemo Plus Platinum. You get love on Twitter because everyone loves that. Like our boy Neil Orfield. He doesn't need any of that. This guy just keeps crushing. Another showdown win, 100K and 25,000. To our boy Neil Orfield. Look, Neil does a ton of shows with us. He's the showdown king at this point. Congrats, man. Said single game tool was spot on. Solid marketing too. That's what I'm saying, man. These tools are putting in work. And that express pass for $395 a week, the single game showdown tool, top plays tool is part of that for $395 a week. Rim Pack, another one of ours, 67,000. I told you these tools work. Congrats, man. That must have been from last night. 400. Eric, 400 top scores yesterday.
Just absurd. I mean, the NBA is out of control. I mean, we're getting news constantly at all hours of the day.
It's
but
nuts.
I was recording the Slate Starter with Ryan last night, and I was like, "Hey, how's your night going?" He goes, "Oh, I'm just, tied for the $15 on DK." And I'm just like, "F this guy!" Like, what a joke!
Right?
Where that's just like he's like, "I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed." I'm like, "It's the fourth quarter. You're not gonna go sweat 67.5. I'm that much of a peasant now."
Yep.
Like, come on, dude.
It's amazing.
It's
amazing.
outrageous. Yeah.
Brent Ross, Wounded Geese with the first place win. Congrats to you, man. See what I mean? Like 4K, single entry. We'll take it all. Great content as always. He said, thanks, dude. Jim Waterfield, 583. Oh, look at that. Field of 5,000 or more. He gets third out of exactly 5,000. That's huge right there. Thanks for all the great content. The YouTube shows not only have great content, but are entertaining. My first big win. Congrats, Jim. And then Alexandre, $2,000 win right there. 10K shot machine. Good stuff, bro. First out of 1,500. And to close this off, Bambo, 300, first place, 411.5. Holy shit, man. These scores have been absolutely nuts. Congrats to all of you. Get in, download the avatar, say what's up to us at Awesemo, HOF. Get inducted. Get your free month as well. Why not? All right, Matt, let's wrap this up. Top stacks for the week. Right now, you have Tampa Bay with the highest top stack probability, followed by Buffalo, KC, and the LA Rams, all of them at 12% or higher. Seems to make some sense.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Basically, the top stacks tool of late has been telling me not to get cute at quarterback. Don't play your Justin Fields, your Jake Fromms, your gross quarterbacks. We have explosive enough offenses, and every single week it seems like there's one that goes under the radar. One last week that had it was a lower leverage score, but it was still positive with Cincinnati. And I think you can use the top stacks tool to find some of those. And basically every single week you're seeing Tampa Bay, LA, Buffalo towards the top, which tells me these teams aren't owned enough. And we continue to see them at the top of tournament winning lineups. So for this week, I'm still going to go back to LA in a game against the Ravens without a secondary, but with a capable offense on the other side. When I think about the shootout potential of these games, sure, Tampa Bay looks great, but can the Jets really keep it up on the other end? And I think maybe if they get a ceiling outcome, they could, but Baltimore far more likely to do that. So I'm still going to side with the LA team in the top stacks tool here.
I'm with you. You already know I love going to this Rams team this week. I'm sure ownership will change a little bit, but if it really is that low of ownership on guys like Van Jefferson and Odell, it'll be interesting. Do you think there's any merit to going with like a Stafford, Beckham, Jefferson lineup without Kupp this week, Eric? Matt, yeah. Really?
No.
Okay.
I don't. I don't. Mainly because how does Stafford break a slate? He's going to do it through Kupp. He's not going to do it through Jefferson and Beckham. There's a 0% chance that I do that actually. Mainly because it would take what 25 plus from both of them. That's not happening with Cooper Kupp healthy. You would need something really, really fluky to happen where, that was just, you get Kupp dinged up in the first quarter and something of that nature. But for me, I just have been saying it every single week. Maybe I'm a broken record, but it looked really nice last week. Josh Allen, we're just going to continue jamming him in a lot of these spots. Looking at them right now, 12.4% top stack potential, a tiny bit of positive leverage here. I think what gets frustrating for everybody is that if you're stacking him up with Stephon Diggs, hasn't exactly gone well here of late. That's really the problem that people have been having with it. But, there's paths to some of these cheap end guys, whether it's, Gabe Davis, who even at 5K, I'm going to get to Cole Beasley. There are just so many cooks in the kitchen there at that wide receiver spot. I think you can kind of mix and match them in tournaments because I want to be going for that 29 total. I want to be going to Josh Allen, especially looking how good he played there in that spot. I mean, even Devin Singletary, just having this entire Buffalo team against Atlanta, 14-point favorites at home. There's no doubt about it. Buffalo is just going to be firing on all cylinders to finish out the season, and I want to be invested.
So do I. If there was one stack that is right now getting no real attention, Matt, but you think should be getting a little bit more, who would it be? Because Cincy is very low right now in terms of just overall ownership, positive leverage, not insane, but they're up there. Kansas City not getting a ton of ownership right now, and Arizona's down there a lot. I feel like Arizona's the one team you and I talked about earlier where they have really struggled lately, but could this be a Kyler Murray, Christian Kirk, and Ertz game with CeeDee Lamb run back that just breaks a slate? It's always possible.
Right. Based on our tools right now, it seems like that's the preferred side to stack. Dallas is coming in a little over-owned. I think part of that's going to come down to price. Kyler's expensive, but none of the receiving options you stack him with are. Ertz, I think, could be a tight end you use that might rival the overall Kelce's of the world. But ultimately, you can use any of these Arizona pass catchers, and they're going to be pretty cheap, whereas you have to pay a little bit more for the Dallas guys. And this still has the highest total on the board across all like major books. So I think this is a spot that is going under-owned here. But one last situation, like it didn't really come up, and naturally it's not going to because it's not really a stack. But what do you guys make of San Francisco with Trey Lance under center? Because we don't really talk quarterbacks until the top stack still, and he's not really a guy you stack.
It's a great question. Go ahead, Eric. He's 4,800 on DraftKings.
I mean, I think the natural thing that I do with a lot of these quote unquote running quarterbacks is you pair him up with a tight end, and he kind of like what a safety valve, short distance kind of guy. We've seen it with Mark Andrews now 3 times in a row. I'm not saying, it's George Kittle's. I mean, it's a straight up comp there. Deebo Samuel, I think, is probably going to get a lot of involvement as a runner here in this spot. We saw that big play, I believe it was against Seattle, which was super tilting to me, where he ended up getting there on that one big play. I ended up putting up 38.7, and I know that was with Trey Lance behind center. So there's definitely some upside to be had pairing him with some of these pass catchers, no doubt about it. I find it hard to want to just say naturally going up against Houston, I want to play Trey Lance sub 5K, that I wouldn't want to pair him with somebody. I mean, we've just seen some above average. We've seen some above average performances from Jimmy Garoppolo that's inflated some of these numbers, but like Deebo Samuel's kind of become independent himself as well. So I just think investing in the offense more so than trying to like force a stack probably makes the most sense. But I think I have a really disgusting one. I don't want to end the show with this. Maybe Laffy can save it from me, but Zach Wilson. And this is really absurd. This is probably, you go ahead.
Yes,
Give me the frowny face. I'm fine with that. But I talked with Adam on the Monday show, the Monday review show, and he had about 15% of this dude. And he's basically saying everybody finds Zach Wilson to be terrible. Everybody's kind of like just basically said that he's garbage. Well, he's adding some rushing volume that exists now into his game. He's going up against a pass funnel here in Tampa Bay. If you go to our game script adjusted rush percentage, they have the lowest projected rush percentage in this spot. Zach Wilson is going to be dropping back a lot in this spot going up against Tampa Bay. You said you had concerns about them keeping pace, but if they try to here, I mean, Winfield Jr. is questionable, so that's a big piece in that secondary at safety. Shaq Barrett's going to be out. They still have some depleted spots here. Dean's still on the COVID list, so like, I'm looking at this Tampa Bay team, their defensive side, not exactly being as stout as people might expect. Zach Wilson has kind of been surprising to me going through his box scores here of late. And he's definitely somebody that I'm considering on the bottom end. I mean, he's got a 0.2% top stack potential. So like, once again, this is the largest of large field tournaments, but Zach Wilson has been performing above expectation, and against a pass funnel like Tampa Bay, it makes some sense to me.
Here's the problem, though. Who are you stacking him with? Braxton Berrios? And
Best of luck. I have no idea. Legitimately, you got to find like one guy, 2 guys there. But like Trey Lance is going to get some attention. We don't talk quarterbacks, but like, if you find anybody else cheap, I think depending on this Lamar Jackson news too, we could be looking at Johnson again. Like Zach Wilson is 5,400. It's kind of a weird tag to be looking at entirely, but like, if you can find, if it's going to be Braxton Berrios, Keelan Cole, I mean, they're not exactly zeros. Braxton Berrios was like, 50% owned in both Alex's and Adam's lineups last week. So, obviously he got there through the kick return, and that was pretty fluky, but I think there's going to be a lot of passing opportunity for both teams in this game.
All right. I guess Moore can come off he came off the injured reserve and put on the COVID-19 reserve list. So maybe Elijah Moore's back this week. That would help.
That'd be fun.
I have no interest in stacking a Zach Wilson team if the best option is Braxton Berrios. That's what I'm saying. Like I need I need some upside.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey, this has been a fun show as always, boys. All right, Matt, we got you out. Not too late. We'll make it. We're good. Shout out to Mike Lawrence for producing the show. Hit that thumbs up before you guys go. We got the matchup show tomorrow, top stack show Friday, Final look Saturday. It all culminates in a 4.5-hour stream Sunday leading up to kickoff. And of course, you guys know this, but a lot of NBA stuff going on today. You should check out all of the VODs that we have to get you prepped. But of course, the deeper dive, the live before lock show, both of which kick off 5 and then 6:30 East or 6 o'clock Eastern time. We'll catch you back here very soon. Thanks as always for hanging. Follow Eric at Eric Lindquist, Matt at Matt_Gajewski, me at Lafayette_D. Peace.